It's just music, man. There's
Yeah,
no such
yeah.
thing as we don't care about like what shoes you wear and what guitar you have and how you hold your. You have to do whatever you want, man. You tell them to screw themselves
Mm.
because you're an artist.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
here to comply and be polite to the system. The whole world is like that right now. The
yeah.
whole school system, like music schools, for example, like they become an abomination. Politically correct. This is this is how you do. This is how you not do. This is in here. This is not that. You don't do that in gypsy jazz. You see, this is the death of music. It's rotten from the beginning. Marketing is a black magic practice. If you read the book of Genesis, this is what the snake does. Is exactly what the recording industry has been doing. If you follow, you have to follow what haunts you. If it haunts you, there is a reason why it haunts you.
Mm.
So you follow it, and then you start to feel very at one with it. I want to be a musician.
Mm.
I want to play guitar. I had no idea what the world is like what it is to go on tour, what anything. I had no idea of anything. But
Mm.
I took a leap of faith and I did it and it worked.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's Gypsy Jazz Hangouts. And we've got special guest Stephane Wrembel. How you doing, mate?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent. And joining us is my good friend Andrea Vergani. Doing all right, mate?
Yeah, all good, good. Always good to be back here, actually.
Yeah, happy days, happy days.
Yeah.
So let's cut to the chase because I know we've got a bit of tight schedule. So, Stephane, you got a good old French accent there. You're actually born in Fontainebleau, is that right?
I was born in Paris and raised near Fontainebleau, yeah.
And of course, Fontainebleau is just near Samoa, where the great man Django is buried. And before you started out on piano before you played guitar, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And then you got into guitar like in your teens, I guess, there or thereabouts.
So when I was 4 years old, my mom put me to take piano lessons with a lady named Gilberte Lecomte, Mademoiselle Lecomte, we call her. And hold on.
Hold on, everybody.
I have a dehumidifier on because we had the storm and there was some water.
Oh, no.
No, there is a dehumidifier, but I just turned it off. It's very, very loud. So yeah, when I was 4 years old, my mom took me to take lesson with Mademoiselle Lecomte. She was very famous piano teacher in my area when I was a kid. She took lessons from her and all. And Mademoiselle Lecomte was part of the Nadia Boulanger circle, you know. She was the accompanist for the singers and the dancer at the Paris Conservatory, meaning she could sight read anything on tempo, like Chopin, Scherzo, whatever. She could sight read anything on tempo, and she could transpose anything on tempo while sight reading any key. She could reduce scores and stuff. She was one of those, you know.
She's like the opposite of a guitar player. She can sight read.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was interesting because I grew up in that presence, you know. And she had an old apartment, like old school apartment with like, you know, pianos everywhere in there and the view on the castle in Fontainebleau. So there was a certain vibe, very, very classical, you know, that was very appropriate for Ravel, for Chopin, for Mozart and all that. Very, very classical.
But despite all that, you ended up going down a rock route for a while and then into jazz eventually.
Yeah, you know, she was born in 1900 or 1895 or something like that, you know. So she came from a different time period, and I was born in 74. So when I started going like late 70s, it was 70s world, you know, with the Police, Pink Floyd, and all that stuff. So that's also what I knew, what I grew up with. So, and I always had a connection with the guitar. I never really had much of a connection with the piano. A little bit, but not the same, you know. It was never the same. And the connection with the guitar is way deeper, is way more natural for me. So when I was 15, I started the guitar and I took that journey.
And, you know, so I've read that, you know, you don't like your music to be pigeonholed with a certain genre, label, you know, gypsy jazz, whatever. You've got all these different influences. You're obviously really into the classical stuff. Obviously, you're into all the rock stuff as well. But your career is very much kind of I mean, Django centric. You know, you're known as a Django Reinhardt style guitar player. Why Django? Out of all these different musics that you could explore and discover and express yourself, why was it Django was the one that you kind of pursued most?
This is completely irrational.
Yeah,
You can't,
tell me more.
when you hear something like Django and you dive into it, this is irrational. You do it because it triggers something in you. So you know that you can feel something in it. I don't know. It's not rational.
You don't choose it. It chooses you, I suppose.
Yeah. And you're right. I despise any labels of genre because this is a marketing invention. You know, marketing is black magic practice. It's a repetition of a message in the subconscious. Essentially, if you read the book of Genesis, this is what the snake does to convince the creature Adam Eve to eat the fruit of the tree. It's propaganda, marketing. That's exactly, you can see the technique in 2 seconds. There really is like 2 lines of the snake talking to Eve, the subconscious part of that being. And the way it convinces that being to eat the fruit is exactly like propaganda marketing campaign. And this is exactly what the recording industry has been doing.
So there's a real diametrically opposed thing between, say, the artist, for want of a better word, and the people, as you say, the marketing, the whatever. You think that they're corrosive to one another. Is that the way you'd see it?
I think like metaphysically, right now, it's a weird place because the recording, I'm not sure is a good thing for us.
Recording, you mean like releasing music or just recording for any purpose?
Recording music. I'm even wondering if like reading and writing is a good thing for us. You see, what I discovered in my journey with Django, I went the opposite way of the modern world. I tried to simplify it. And I think I found I'm right there. I found a very simple system. Meaning you have some very strong poles, for example, for harmony. You know, you have very strong poles that are planted with a lot of space in between. And in that space, the poles are bare. It's like basic harmony, first degree, like you have a chord and you have like a inversion from the root, from the third, from the fifth. It's very bare, you know?
Right.
How you connect these things, how you move these things. It's just I'm going back to the rules of harmony, really. But through Django, you can see it on the guitar. And then in between, you have all that space. So what do you do with that space? That's really where there is like metaphysics going on here. So I think in my understanding in my vision of the world, intelligence is connecting the dots. You have informations, and it's what you do to connect this information. It's not the information itself.
And Django and the music of Django is particularly good in this respect?
Extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
Django was extremely intelligent. He really knew how to connect all that, you know. And Django had like he knew that very basic and fundamental harmony, and he was cruising within it with music, you know. So what do you do with that space? You can pack it with information, which is memory, really, or you can pack it with intelligence.
Have you got any examples of somebody packing that with information in a way that really turns you off? You think, this is no good.
Oh yeah, the whole world is like that right now. The whole school system. Like music schools, for example, like they become an abomination. They just like the whole thing, for example, with modes it's an aberration. It shouldn't be. The whole thing about Dorian, Phrygian, all that crap, this is useless.
Well, funny enough,
is no good for anyone.
Funny enough, I can't remember. I was probably talking to you about it, Andrea, or somebody recently, and I was talking about if ever I'm having to teach a student, and I get students who are guitar players who are kind of competent, they know a pentatonic scale, they know a bit of rock, and they want to learn jazz improvisation. And they always say to me, oh, what scales do I need to use on this chord or something? And for me, and this is just what worked for me, I found the scales weren't really very good because they didn't explain to you kind of the hierarchy of notes. And I suppose maybe what you'd say, what's closer to those poles. For me, learning the arpeggio tells you which notes are kind of closest to that harmony. And immediately you can be musical because you understand which notes are stronger and weaker than others, say. I've never been a fan of teaching, because you get the real books, and like if you bought the old real books, and there's a big index at the back, and it'll say major 7 chord and explain what modes you can play. And I was like, oh, brilliant! Oh, it says here Lydian, brilliant. And so I got a Lydian mode and just went up and down, and it just sounded kind of crap, to be honest. It wasn't working for me.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Like actually, when you guys were talking about this stuff, I remembered for a moment how music used to feel to me when I was just, young, just a teenager playing. And back then, all I was doing was just listen to music, copying, and then just trying to come up with my own stuff. So it was just a process where I was just listening, and there weren't too many rules. While these days, and to me happened when I started trying to learn jazz, music became like something that, there are keys to music. There are things you need to know. You need to know all of your scales and arpeggio and the modes. And once you will know those things, you'll be able to produce music. So, in a sense, the music education to me seemed like that all those mysterious dots, they've been connected by someone else for me. And the day I could have been able to play those connected dots, I would have become a musician. But it's never like that. There's no mystery. And I miss that kind of, spontaneous joy of playing music.
So you're saying that over-educating and maybe writing things down and reading them is spoiling the mystical element of music?
In a sense, I mean, obviously there are elements of music that they're just there, the stuff you need to know and get under your fingers. But I think that there's no like given keys to being able to play music. I mean, what does it even mean playing music or playing a melody? Something that in my lessons with Stephane, we came up like, what's a melody, right?
Is this what you guys do in your lessons? You just talk about the Book of Genesis and Satan and things like this, or
only Satan?
Yeah. But you say that music education, you're not into it, but do you not think it does produce like competent musicians? I mean, surely some of the kids coming out of Berkeley think, hey, he's a pretty good guitar player, or she's a pretty good whatever player, surely.
Okay, so now you're talking about education. It's a big word. To me, education is tied to intelligence, while instruction is tied to information.
Right.
So what's done in school is instruction. It's not education.
Okay, it's I'll show you how you do this. Just repeat after me. It's not
you just give information, but the problem is because there is no education, you cannot teach someone. There's no one size fits all. It's not possible. You cannot have a 12-week program or 15-week program with this and this and this and this and this and that for everyone the same, and hope for anything to happen, because you need to develop your muscle memory. You need to practice. All that thing takes time. And some people are very quick with the technique. Some people are very slow with the technique. Some people are slow with the harmony or quick with the harmony. Some people have rhythm. Like everyone has different problems. Everyone has different sensitivity. Everyone is completely different. So that one size fits all thing is completely crazy. But the school is good to teach the grammar of music. For example, you teach harmony, you teach rhythm. This is teachable, but that should be taught. You see, the problem is when you start to have too much of a rigid program. Why do you have a rigid program with weeks and everything is ensnared in time? You know what I mean? Everything is under the control of Chronos, of Saturn, of time. And it's like, okay, you have 15 weeks. Okay, you have like 5 classes of 70 minutes each, and you go from 8 to 9, and it's like, this is not how art works, man. This is not how music works.
You can't regiment it like you would regiment a factory or an army or something.
No, it's an everyday it's a way of life. You wake up, you're already in it. you go to sleep, you're still in it. You dream, you're still in it. Your whole being is in it. From birth to death, you are bathing in it. And that's all that matters, because that's what haunts you. Some people are not haunted by art at all. They're haunted by something else. That's their thing. You know what I mean? Like everyone is haunted by a different thing. But as an artist, you're haunted by something, and you're haunted by it's, if anything, it's very Jungian, you know, to take a shortcut, but you're haunted by mythology, by images, by everything very primal. Human being, you know, from primal tribes. That's what haunts us, you know, and by a feeling of the world, like a world that is beyond the appearance. You know, you can feel something like the world of dreams, you know, like all that is pervading. And so when you're an artist, you go for that. And when someone comes with like rigid society rules, you tell them to screw themselves. Because you're an artist. You're not here to comply and be polite to the system. If the system does something that you like, you say, hey, I like that. If it does something that you like, you say, screw you.
So tell me this then. You're a musician, you're an artist, and you're a working musician as well. How do you find the balance then between chasing, you know, what haunts you, as you say, and paying the bills through playing guitar, you know?
It comes to me.
Yeah.
If you follow your path, if you follow what you're for with faith, you have to, it's a leap of faith. It's not science. You know, life is an act of faith. You know, you make decision based on hope. You know, like you're like, all right, I'm just gonna, you know, I really like that. When I decided to be a musician, I went to at first university to become maybe a music teacher, trying to plan something. It didn't work so well. After a month, I was like, I just can't do that. I want to be a musician. I want to play guitar. I had no idea what the world is like what it is to go on tour, what anything. I had no idea about anything. But I took a leap of faith and I did it, and it worked, because you need to plunge in it and you need to learn. You need to do it.
Yeah, you jump in the deep end and you learn as you go along, I suppose.
Exactly. And then you realize that if you follow, you have to follow what haunts you. If it haunts you, there is a reason why it haunts you. So you follow it, and then you start to feel very at one with it. You start to feeling like at one with it. And once you are at one with it and you follow what you're supposed to do, the things come to you. You don't have to worry about it. It's provided.
So out of interest, obviously music is a big haunt of yours. Were there any other things in life that haunted you that you couldn't chase after because you were pursuing the music so hard? Or was it a trade-off, or was it just the music?
No, I do whatever I want.
Handy, yeah.
You know, always with the respect of the others. Always make time for the others, and always like, I'm very, for example, when we go to play a show, I'm always respectful to the promoter, to the crowd. So I'm respectful of these things that I not like the time thing, for example. I try to be there on time, play the show on time. We have our equipment, we're prepared, we're polite, like we're all that. We're respectful too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're sharing this with everyone else, you know what I mean? So
exactly. So there is, of course, we're not alone. So there is a respect for the other in that sense, you know. But I still go and I do whatever I want, and it works.
Handy enough, yeah, absolutely. And so it was always music then. There wasn't a time, because I mean, like, you know, I like music. There's lots of things that I like as well, and maybe I think, oh, maybe I'd love to have pursued that instead of the music or whatever. Was there anything else in life that you thought, I wish I could give more time to pursue that haunt, as you say?
I'm doing them.
Yeah.
I'm into painting, so I have like a couple of things here, and I'm getting ready as the kids are going back to school.
Yeah,
I have like a big painting I need to do. Like I have it in my head, so I'm on that. I read a lot of philosophy, and I love psychology.
Yeah.
So psychology, you see, it's always psychology I studied on my own.
Yeah, just reading books and.
Yeah, I'm following like I'm of course I'm more attached to the Jungian aspect of things, than Adler or Freud. But so I read a lot of Carl Jung and Marie-Louise von Franz and all that, And when I study that. I studied morphopsychology.
Yeah,
I
man.
study things like that. So
Do you
but
find
you don't
sorry,
need a school. You do not need a school for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to become a professional psychologist. For some people, it's what they are hunted for, like they are hunted to become a psychologist. I'm not hunted to be a psychologist. I'm hunted also by psychology to understand the world, except my psychology goes into music.
I was going to say, do you find learning about all these other things equips you more to do your music? Does it bring a lot to your musical adventures?
Yeah, but not in terms of like which chord I'm going to choose. That's not like that.
No. But
music is just in the end, it's expression. So we don't really know what music is, to be honest. You don't know. You don't know what anything is. That's why it's important to read philosophy. If you read Schopenhauer, he really points on that. You see, for example, what you see, your brain, okay, is the filter for all the experiences with the outer world, for your five senses. So it all filters through the brain. I'm not saying that the consciousness is born from the brain. I'm just saying it filters everything in the senses, like the center control, okay? And your brain is in your skull. It's in a black box. Your brain, like you think you see light, but your brain never see light. Your brain, it's in a black box. So what happened? You have like the photons hitting your retina, and it becomes an electric impulsion that becomes a chemical reaction in your brain that's translated as an image. Okay. And so the image, so first I remember on my biology classes, they said the image is reversed in the brain. I was like, really? So there is some kind of a screen somewhere? What is that? So that they can't really explain. And then not only that, but who is watching? The big question, who's watching that screen? So first, it's all a bunch of like photons hitting the eye, creating chemical reaction, and then you see. So you think that what you see is real, but what you see is just in your head. It's just your visual center creating an experience. So this is really an experience. Is this experience real? Is what we see really like what we see? Or is it really like only what we can perceive through the photons and our like chemical reactions? And also, not only that, but are two people seeing the same thing? You can say that something is red because there is a spectrum, okay, of red. You're like, this is red. The other person is going to say is red. But what do we know what it represents for that person?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of that thing that went around the internet a few years ago of a dress, and half the population seemed to think it was blue, and the other half thought it was gold. Do you remember that? It was the same picture, but weirdly, some people would see it as a blue dress, and some people would see it as a completely different color, actually, which is kind of weird. Like, yeah. I can't remember. There was another one as well with a sound. It was somebody talking, and some people thought it said Laurel, and some people thought it said Yanni. Do you remember that? It's like a few years ago. Anyway.
I don't remember, but yeah. So there is a big saying: if a tree falls in the forest and there is no one to hear it, does it make a noise? No, it doesn't. It generates an air wave, and if someone is around, like that air wave is going to create a sound because the sound is in your head. The sound is not outside. Outside is just air moving. There is no sound. Sound is a human experience or an animal experience, So it's all flickering, so it's not solid. It's just an illusion. We are in that we are constructing like a dream. We are constructing things around us from that. Who knows what's real, what's not, really.
Cartesian skepticism, I suppose.
I don't know. You just, if you think about the experience itself, you know, without naming things like that, without falling into genres, but just like, again, it's the experience.
Totally,
It's the
man.
same problem in philosophy, you know. You have like categories, this guy is here, this guy is, it's like in music genre. There is no such thing. It's just common sense, and like you have common sense or people who point toward something like Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer is the one who really points toward the experience like that, like is what we see real or not. He starts his book, The World is My Representation. That's his first phrase of the world as will and representation. The world is my representation. And he said, a man who has wisdom, he knows that what he touches is not the earth, but a representation within himself of the earth. That's not the sun that he sees, but a representation of the sun in his own eye. So he doesn't, you don't really know the essence of the object, but you just get a representation that's created within you. And who knows what the other is experiencing. It's a completely different thing. So we live in that world of, it's really a world of mirage. It's a world of dreams. It's a world of, it's like a fog, you know, it's not real. You know, what we think is real is actually just a representation. You can say, yeah, but science, you know, we have a telescope, we observe stars. Yeah, but you still need an eye and you still need a human being to observe it.
Yeah, this is true.
So it just doesn't matter. It's still the same thing. We're at the same point, you know.
Well,
and it's all colors, it's all alive, it's all an experience, and this experience is not bound by space and time. If you look at the experience of colors and objects and art that is like surrounding you, everything is art. An apartment is art, and a house is art. Everything is art. Everything is shapes and colors and light, and as that it's in your head because you produce it in your head. If you can meditate on that and become conscious of it constantly or as constantly as possible, then everything that comes to your field has that aura, that haze, that impressionistic, you know, that impressionistic feeling about everything, you know, that dream feeling about everything. And then you're really like walking in art constantly. And this is experience. It's just a total, complete experience that is not bound by time and space. It's just the experience itself. It's above that. That's why in the beginning of the Genesis, it says, when God creates the creature Adam, Eve, because it's only one creature, it's not a man and a woman. That's like an inversion of what really happens in the book, you know. It's a bad translation. It's one creature that has like a body and a subconscious, really. And God tells it, eat at the tree of life. Do not eat at the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So eat at the tree of life. Don't eat at the tree of moral. Okay, that's like the message. Then you read Nietzsche. So supposedly Nietzsche, everyone's like, Nietzsche is like the opposite of everything, you know, it's the enemy of religion and stuff. No, Nietzsche is the enemy of the priests. Nietzsche is the enemy of the corporations. Nietzsche tells you, say yes to life, the great yes to life. And he says, don't eat at the tree of moral. He says the same thing. He says, eat at the tree of life, do not eat at the tree of moral, you know? Yeah. And the tree of moral is not the tree of respecting others. It's not what moral means. The moral is the source of resentment, meaning blaming the other for one's own insuccess and failures in life, while it's just like a mind game, you know, when you don't see it.
Is that all moral judgments?
What's up?
Is that counting for all moral judgments? You say morality is just blaming somebody else for whatever, like.
Yeah, because there's a misconception between inner compassion toward the other, like the things that we do normally, which is they are just normal, and Nietzsche explains that a lot, you know. It's been taken over by the priest with a big P, you know, that it's multiform, you know. It can be a politician, it can be a priest, it can be like on any level, you know, like religious, political, whatever, you know. It's been taken over like in every part of the society, you know. And that moral is based on resentment. It's like blaming the other for your own failures and in success, you know.
Do you think there's in music communities, culture, there's a kind of an element of that? Sometimes you come across that, a kind of weird.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because once you start naming something, you create a cult. When you start saying gypsy jazz, you've created a cult. Instead of just playing the music, because it doesn't exist. Fundamentally, if you listen to Django Reinhardt and Biréli Lagrène and Angelo De Bar, you have three completely different musicians.
Is there a difference in a cult and a community? Could a name just be a handy banner that people recognize each other and come together under one common interest? Yeah,
but you see that always turn into politically correct. This is how you do, this is how you not do, this is in here, this is not that, you don't do that in gypsy jazz, this guy is here in gypsy jazz, this guy is there in gypsy jazz, everyone copying the same new lick. You see, this is the death of music. All that is like, it's rotten from the beginning. The reality is there is music, we don't know what it is, it's an experience. If you can explain to me what music is, I don't know, but I have no idea what music is. Why do humans crave music?
Just another interesting thing as well, because you're absolutely right. As soon as you create a category, well, by definition, there are things that it is and things that it isn't within the definition of that. And that can lead to orthodoxy and the concept of heresy and things like that. But it's quite handy. Like, you know, there's no doubt that for me to discover more of the music of Django Reinhardt and the people that followed him, those categories were really helpful for me to locate these things. And if I want to go to a jam session where people are playing Django Reinhardt tunes, I look out for the one that says Gypsy Jazz. If it had no names, I'd be wandering around a long time. And as a result, I've yielded a lot. I've learned a lot. And of course, it has that tendency to become, as you say, there's heresy, you can't do this in gypsy jazz or whatever. But surely there is some benefit in an early community kind of stage to these kind of labels. It's like a road sign. If I want to get to somewhere, it's handy that there's a sign that says this is the way to get there, you know?
Yeah, but now you're plunging into exactly what this is what I oppose.
Tell me more.
Saint Augustine said we are in this world, but we are not from this world.
Right.
So although we are from a different place, we also need to deal with this world, which is I'm trying to deal with this world the way it is.
Yeah.
But in my analysis of things, recording has been a great misery for us. Actually, Plato, like Socrates, warned us against it. He refused to write down one line. He said things should remain oral and alive.
Who was that? Sorry, I missed that. Who was that?
Socrates,
yeah.
Then his pupil, Plato, wrote many books. There is like 43 books attributed to him. There's probably like 30 or 35. A few of them are, obviously, when you read them, you know they are probably from his students or something. They're not of the same facture, you know. So you read Plato, and in Plato, even as he wrote down everything, he did the opposite of Socrates. In Phaedra, he warns us with the myth of Thoth. Thoth is the god, the Egyptian god who created writing. And Thoth go to see the king Ammon, and he say, look, I invented writing. It's going to be a great thing for humans. They're going to be able to write down their memories and stuff, and they're going to be able to keep the information and keep evolving. And Ammon says, Thoth, your intentions are great because you're God and you have great intentions for the others. I said, but I'm afraid it's going to have the contrary effect. You're going to have the information is going to be floating, and people more and more, instead of turning toward themselves, within themselves to find it and leave that information again. They will just accumulate information and walk in the street thinking they are very knowledgeable, while they really don't know anything. They just have memorized information that don't come from them, and it's going to be the death of them. So he warns us already of the danger of writing. He's writing, and he warns us, what I write is dangerous. It's dangerous already.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just a case of, you know, it's not quite such an absolute. I mean, I see a lot of books behind you, and surely these books helped you learn an experience, and then you can discard the information.
We are not from this world, we are in this world. So now
we are in it.
The recording process, imagine Django was born in 1910. There's no radio, there's no recording. Maybe for a few rich people, there's something that happened. Like, there's no radio. Radio, I think, is more like the 20s, the 30s or something. I think it comes a bit later. And the same thing, the recording is at the very, very, very beginning. So at the time of Django, you want to hear music, or Segovia, what happened? You have the music that's played in front of you from beginning to end. That's it. It's gone. Never comes back. So the problem with recording is we create those indestructible archetypal figures, these gods that we cannot get rid of. So for example, you have a figure like Jimi Hendrix, like you play guitar. No matter what you do, you're compared to Hendrix, Django, all that, because they're there constantly. Not only that, but more and more people don't need, you don't need more of the same thing, because you already have some people have already laid out in their time period. I was listening to some prelude of Chopin, no, some nocturnes of Chopin the other day by a new guy. I got a notification on Adagio.
Was this a recording, or was this?
Yeah, so there's Adagio. It's an app of only classical music. And if you like classical music, Adagio, it's amazing. I love it. So I get a notification from Adagio that is those nocturnes from that young guy. I'm just like, all right, let's listen to it, you know, because I love the Chopin nocturne. So I play it, and I'm just like, another one of these versions. I can't take it anymore, you know. I already know like Horowitz and Martha Argerich and Alfred Cortot and De Groot. Like there's like a lot of people that I already listen to, Sanson François, playing these things. I don't need more of that. It's already been done. And that's the problem with recording. Because now if the recording doesn't exist, in order to hear the nocturnes of Chopin, you need to go somewhere and listen to someone play it, or you need to play it yourself. That's the only way you experience music.
I suppose one of the handy things about recordings is that I don't have to listen to them if I don't want to. Just like if you and me, Andrea, recorded Flesh Door by Django a few weeks ago. And there's probably somebody who listened to that and think, oh, God, another one of these. Jesus, it's killing me, man. But he doesn't have to listen to it if he doesn't want to. But of course, there would have been a time where if Django performed that and I grew up in Yorkshire, I'd never be able to hear it ever in my whole lifetime.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have
that's
a chance
a
to
great
hear it.
thing.
But is that a great thing that I wouldn't have been able to hear Django Reinhardt? You know,
yes, because if you don't record things and they get lost in space and time like that, that gives you the whole space to recreate it.
Yeah.
So you can constantly recreate it.
Yeah.
Things get recreated and remixed, and they are alive. If you put it in a box and that's it, it's how it is, you just killed it.
But this kind of discussion reminds me, of something that I watched on the internet the other day. It was a discussion between, do you know Rick Beato, the guy from America? Anyway, experienced like music producer, musician, teacher, used to be a professor as well. And in a chat with other guitarists, they said that these days, I don't know how true can be, but I think it's related to what we're discussing. These days, drummers tend to be extremely mechanically, or at least drummers from a certain genre. These guys play some crazy prog, math rock. So because of the way we record music and we quantize everything, so these new guys, these new young drummers, they play in a very sterile way, super precise. They copy a certain sounds, and there's not much variety. And it's because of the way we record stuff and the way we keep on presenting the same sound as we can work it out on our laptops from home. So I can see how you can miss a lot of creativity, originality. Partially, all this talk reminds me of how having all the music of the world on Spotify, it doesn't help you actually to learn music. Like I remember when I was growing up, learning music was just finding a couple of CDs or tapes even, and then just listen to those albums for hours and hours and hours, and then going to live events. And yeah, you didn't get all these labels on your back, in your ears, and in your education, and there was more freedom, I would say.
Well, there's no doubt that obviously these are negative things to having lots of music recorded, but you talk about freedom. You know, when Django first listened to Dizzy Gillespie on a recording, he didn't, that's how he managed to hear it. It gave him a great deal of freedom to learn a bit of that vocabulary and express sides of him that he wouldn't have been able to express otherwise. In fact, it gave him more freedom than less. Would you not say?
Okay, I have something to say about
Yeah.
that. Number one, Django learned jazz right after the First World War with the musicians coming to Europe,
as well as learning from records.
He loved hearing Louis Armstrong, but Louis Armstrong came to Paris too. He could have heard like Louis Armstrong back then. To him, it doesn't change anything.
But he did learn from records that he wouldn't have been.
He was 25 years old already.
Yeah.
When he heard Louis Armstrong for the first time. So it doesn't really. He was already on the verge of recording. We're talking about 1934. So it didn't create Django. And
no, not create, but it helped him.
So
it surely helped him develop as an artist.
That go back to what I was saying, that if you have space and you have some strong poles and you pack that space with information, there is no space anymore for intelligence. It's a very hard.
Maybe there's more space in between those poles than you think.
That if there is the pole and there is the space and you fill it with intelligence, or you fill it.
But you could surely never fill the space between those poles. Surely this music is almost infinite.
Yes, because you have the poles, which are the same for everyone.
Are they? The poles are the same for everyone?
In between the poles, yes. For example, if you take an A minor, A, C, E, and you play it from the third, it's called a sixth inversion. You have C, E, A. Or you play it from the fifth, which is called the 6/4 inversion. So it's E, A, C. So it's the same for everyone.
It's not like color. It's not like color. Because earlier on, color is different for everyone.
That's a rule of harmony.
Yeah, I get it.
You see, you have like 3 inversions of a chord. Then you have the next chord, which also have 3 inversions. And by combining them from their bass or the melody, you start to hear things.
See, I do agree with this, but obviously this goes different. But this goes different to the idea that we're all different and we experience everything differently, and one person sees a red and the other person sees a different red, and that kind of thing.
So once you have that, then because you have space, you play those things. Everyone is going to play this thing and come up with something different. That's something different that matters. That's the space between those poles.
See, one thing I would say as well is everybody coming up with something different is true. Although I would say really, if we weren't able to listen to some new development of music from somewhere else in the world via recording, we'd actually maybe all start sounding kind of similar, because we struggle to find those spaces in between those poles. So, there's no doubt that I've personally developed more as a musician because I've listened to recordings of other things that I wouldn't have been able to hear live. And if I hadn't had that inspiration and discovered some of that, and maybe taken a bit of that and then gone off on my own way, not putting information there, but coming up with my own thing, I may have just been struggling to get further than I would without it. Do you see what I mean? I mean, surely that's a positive benefit of things being recorded and arguably mass produced, and Adagio app, as you say, you can, if I'd never heard Chopin, I could listen to that on there. Maybe I'd write a brand new piece of music from that. Did you see what I mean?
Yeah. So I remember what I just said before. We are in this world, but we're not from this world. Okay. So we deal with whatever is at that moment. Now, you see, I will tell you the same thing that Amand said to Todd. You seem to think it's an advantage, but in reality, you put your memory in something external. It doesn't come from you. You are beyond genre. There is no genre. You're
Sure.
beyond all that.
I can
And
dig that. Yeah.
by collecting information from all over the place, we are like in the illusion that everything is from outside, where everything is within.
That still seemed congruent to. I mean, you've listened to music and it's had an influence on you. Surely you've listened to recordings and it's made you discover something from within yourself. It's unlocked a little bit of you, maybe, or it's contributed to that, perhaps, or is that completely not possible?
Imagine you're like in the time of Django Reinhardt, and all you can hear is music that's played around you.
Yeah.
So if you want to, if for example, you go to a park and you listen to Prelude to the Afternoon of a Phone, that's what he said, like the experience for him, or for Grappelli, he was saying how it was a deep experience for him to hear Debussy played in a park, you know. Or Debussy going to the World Exposition and going to hear the gamelan and hearing all these new ways of organizing sound and help him like with his orchestration. Imagine now that guy, that's all he can hear. He goes and he knows it's played live once. Imagine how active he is within himself.
I understand that. Yeah.
His mind is very active, and how he's able to capture information, and his way to do memory and to turn himself within inward and do things with it.
Scarce, a live performance that's scarce is much more potent than mass-produced recorded music. I get that. Yeah.
If it's all you have, your level of concentration has to be way higher. I am not sure, concentration, which is also meditation. It's all the same thing. This is all the same area. Concentration, you need very strongly for music. You need concentration, you need memory, but not outside memory. You need to turn inward and find within yourself. So I am not sure that nowadays our level of concentration, at least for what I see around me, is better.
I fully agree. Yeah.
It's being destroyed by an overload of information. Instead of having space, you see, when you don't have information, you're there and you have to do something. You don't have games, you don't have anything. Like, you need to do something with yourself as a human being. You turn inward and you start producing something, and you start to concentrate. The ability to concentrate has been lost. This is, I join Andrea in what he said before, when he said that when he was younger, he was listening to albums and stuff. Me too, you too, probably, like, who sits down and listen to a record right now?
Yeah.
You put a whole vinyl and you listen to it from beginning to end. You know how many times I listened to Pink Floyd albums from beginning to end, or like The Cure or something? We listen to the album from beginning in order, because you put the needle and you wait, and you listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, man.
I'm not big time.
So because we benefited from like a previous momentum of concentration. So there is definitely, when you are in a world of symbolic objects around you, and you're connected to your inner being, to your dreams, to all that, you have a different perception of the world. I imagine totally Debussy in his apartment back then in like 1900, with maybe the old grandpa clock somewhere and objects that have like very powerful symbols. I don't know, like I cannot explain, but like maybe a little devilish cup or something. They come from the Andersen fairy tales and stuff like that, So that was like the environment. And that had like a power, those old objects and stuff, they were symbolically powerful, And that must have been a very different experience of the world. And I think that once you start to take everything and blend it together, you end up with a very shallow and everything the same sounding.
It's very much pros and cons, I think, for sure. But so tell me this then, because of course you live in New Jersey, you're just outside New York City, which is a big beast of a city. It's probably a center of a lot of these things that you're not into. Do you find then as a musician, because I mean, me and Andrea talk about this sometimes, about how trying to work as a musician, we both live in London, it's a big busy city, and just even being part of that kind of daily routine of London, getting the tube and doing this, can really wear you out as a musician, do you find you have to, do you have any tips for kind of recharging your batteries? Do you take big breaks away from New York to kind of look inwards, as you say? Do you have kind of routines or methods to kind of help that side of creativity?
Well, I live outside of New York. I live in a very quiet place. I have trees in my garden.
Okay.
I'm isolated. I like to be alone.
Okay. Yeah.
I like my solitude. So when I go to New York, I leave my house. I go on Sunday nights to play. I leave at 7 p.m. I arrive, it's like 8:30, and I start playing at 9. And as soon as I'm done, I take my stuff, I go in my car, and I go home.
You go home. Yeah.
I flee the cities.
Yeah.
I'm not a city person. I don't like cities.
No.
I like the trees. I like birds. I like little insects and stuff. Of course, I like people, and I love to play concert. I think it's a great moment of celebration. Like each concert is like that's why I don't like that playing online, like right now they are like shooting our concerts online. I don't like that. No. I want it to be lost. I don't record it. I don't want to record. I don't want to be seen on. I just want to play for the people who are there, and I want it to be lost.
Yeah. And because that keeps it a special one-off event.
Because that's one. You were there, great. You were not. Hey, you were not. You heard of it, and it's fine. There will be other concerts, and each one is different. Each one, and each time it's a celebration. That's why I like to meet people in that context. It's always a celebration. When I have my students, it's a celebration too. I see my student, it's a celebration of something. It's important. It's not nothing. So if I meet with someone, it's to have something important. It's just to sit and drink and talk about shallow things. I don't care about that. I'd rather be practicing and reading Plato. Yeah. So it's more about everything that happened must be a celebration. It must be like important.
Which is super cool. Which is amazing. And so tell me this then, from your perspective, which is absolutely fascinating. I'm really enjoying listening to it. What advice would you have to, let's say, a young musician in his teens or her teens? They're about to finish school, and they're haunted by the music, and maybe they're thinking, maybe I'll go to university and maybe I'll become a teacher. What would your advice be to somebody that age, discovering their haunt, as you call it?
I don't think I can give anyone any advice on their life. Okay. Everyone has to do their own thing, so I can just speak for myself. I don't know about the others.
Okay, so well, let me flip that then. What advice would you give to yourself of that age, knowing what you know now? Because that's you, so you can give him some advice.
Well, it's just a path, It's just a path. So whatever you do has to be. What I did must have been done.
Okay.
So for example, right now, like my whole thing is trying to simplify everything. It's work against everything that's been poured into my mind, and also the comprehension about what means classical and what means folk. And what you see, Nietzsche in Zarathustra, Nietzsche in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he says that the state is the coldest monster of all monsters, and the state is all lies and deceit. Whatever it says, it didn't create anything, and it's all lies and appropriation, and it's a monster. It's a total, complete monster. And that people create people. It's good. Nietzsche is radical. He separates the good from the bad, like the subtle from the gross, with like violent.
Yeah.
So it's very clear. You have to accept Nietzsche. Because Nietzsche is the truth. Nietzsche is the truth, but it's not for everyone. The truth is hard to bear because of the moral weight that is on our shoulders. So, but people create people, and you see, like if you look before the recording industry arrived, like you look 100 years ago, everywhere in the world there is music. It accompanies the human experience. It's a funny thing. You go to I don't know, you go to Benin in a small village, you're going to have one way of playing the music, like with certain drums, certain string instrument. I don't know, you go to Morocco, you have those people playing the gnawa, for like 12 hours trying to reach their demons. And then you go to Ireland and people have been playing like the Irish music and the Celtic stuff for like hundreds of years, and you have a beer and there is a vibe, what I mean? Man. That thing that's there. So music always scores life. It scores something that makes you alive, That doesn't mean that the life in the Benin village or the life in an Irish pub, one is superior to the other, one is inferior to the other. It is. And it's a very alive experience.
Organic almost, yeah.
And we all go through that. Every human being has religious experience. We cannot escape it. You can't escape the religious experience. So everyone has a religious experience. Everyone has an artistic experience. Everyone has a love experience. Everyone has a dream experience. We're all the same. It's all the same, except because we are not in contact, we're all far. So many things are born. Between the Chinese theater and the music in Cuba, there is it's completely different, and that's because people took the same thing and did something completely different with it. But now if they start to meet and do something in common, and it becomes the norm that everything is always in common. That becomes a one thing that is a bit of this, a bit of that, and that doesn't have much differences anymore. The more there's differences, the more you have strong colors and stuff and things that are vibrant and interacting with each other.
Yeah, going back to the label of Gypsy Jazz, this is another similarity I can see. Now Gypsy Jazz essentially is playing like Stockel Rosenberg from the 80s. But then when you get to know Gypsy Jazz, you see that there's so many different roots. There's folk music from different parts of Europe. There's French music. There's obviously jazz, swing. There's the Django way. So it's for instance, that label, it seems to be very strict in terms of inspiration and music and references. In reality, it's just a little access to like a whole world of sounds that you can explore further. So I pretty much agree with the fact that we are, with all these labels, we are losing freedom of discovering new things. Just
whenever you put a label, you give birth to a priest.
Yeah. There's a right and a wrong as soon as you.
And it's exactly what Nietzsche warns us about is the priests. In his book, The Antichrist, it's not an apology of Satan, not at all. Because I believe that no one was more Christian than Nietzsche, and no one was closer to God than Nietzsche. But he shows you how people manipulate an environment to make it theirs and to place themselves politically to control this little environment. I see it in the so-called Gypsy Jazz world. I see people placing themselves, controlling the communication, and controlling the narrative between people. So they make people believe that there is a thing called Gypsy Jazz, and they keep them in it, you know what I mean? And of course, we as people are looking for that community thing you're talking about. We want to gather together. That's our nature. We want to be together. It's so important. You want to do that. But in the same time, that's manipulated by a category that Nietzsche calls the priests, you know? And I can see it, I see how it's done, and I know who manipulates the language. So you have many people, a lot of people, 99% of the people go in to be as a community and play something they think sounds good and they want to gather together. But then the whole thing is manipulated by a few people that are killing it because they're making theirs instead of like, it's just music, man. There's no such thing as, we don't care about like what shoes you wear and what guitar you have and how you hold your, you have to do whatever you want, man. Whatever music pleases you is what you should play.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and I think that is a really nice place to finish it off. Dude, that was loads of fun. I really, really enjoyed that, man. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And Andrea, I'll see you tomorrow, I think, Andrea.
See you tomorrow, yes.
Yeah,
I guess I'll see you both tomorrow, actually.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, wicked. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And thanks again. Lads, take it easy. Nice to talk to you, man.
Thanks.
All the best.
Goodbye.